This is Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi.
This is the kind of case and the legal puzzle that makes you wonder just how much we really know about the human brain. A Texas jury found just 21-year-old Benjamin Elliott guilty of murder for stabbing his twin sister Meghan in the neck while she slept. The twist: Elliott claims he was sleepwalking at the time. All right, that's where it begins. Carol, thoughts on this being a viable argument before we really get into it?
There's some things about this story that make me think it's not sleepwalking.
Okay.
Now, the family stands behind him. They believe it's sleepwalking. They think that the sister who is deceased would forgive him. And I get that, too, because...
Well, you're going to want to think that if your mom...
You don't want to think that about your own kid. Could have done anything like that.
Yeah.
And I did have a younger sister who used to sleepwalk and would do some weird things.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Because there are some things within this story that make me think he couldn't have been that sound asleep.
Yeah. Well, let's rewind to 2021. Elliott was just 17 when he decided to plunge a survival knife into his sister's neck at their family home in Katy, Texas. According to his version of the events, he was deep asleep in a dream, completely unaware of what he was doing, until he suddenly snapped awake and realized the horror in front of him. His initial statement to investigators, Elliott said, "I freaked out and put the knife down and put a pillow on her to try and stop the bleeding, then called, 911 from my phone." But Meghan's injuries were fatal. No amount of frantic backpedaling could undo what had just happened. About 5 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict, guilty of murder. The judge then handed down a 15-year sentence, far less than the 99 years he could have faced. And why? Because the jury itself asked for leniency. From the very beginning, Elliott's lawyer, Wes Rucker, built the entire defense on the question, why would a kid with no motive, no history of violence, and a deep love for his sister do something this horrific unless he wasn't truly awake? Sleepwalking as a legal defense isn't unheard of, but it is rare. The idea that someone in a sleepwalking state is essentially on autopilot, moving and acting without conscious control, it's not a crime of passion, not a premeditated attack. It's just the brain misfiring in the worst possible way. And Elliott's family backed up his claim. His older sister even testified that he had a history of bizarre trance-like episodes. One time, she recalled, he stood in a doorway with his eyes barely open, unresponsive. When she touched his shoulder, he simply turned and went back to bed, completely unaware of what had happened. Sounds convincing, right? Well, not according to the prosecution. Prosecutors didn't buy the sleepwalking angle for a second. While they couldn't present a clear motive, they did drop some evidence suggesting Elliott was definitely awake shortly before the stabbing. For one, he was using his phone about 20 minutes before the attack. It's a pretty big red flag, unless he was sleep texting, which, to be fair, is a thing, but again, not exactly common. It suggests he was fully conscious leading up to the crime. Then there was the way he handled the aftermath. Prosecutors argued that after stabbing Meghan, Elliott had the presence of mind to call 911 and even use a pillow to muffle her screams. Doesn't really sound like someone in a mindless sleepwalking state. Sounds like someone trying to control the situation. But again, he could have popped out of it. That is how that works. Assistant District Attorney Meghan Long put it bluntly, while I didn't give you motive, I did give you premeditation. It's not a coincidence that the knife he got that night before is the same knife he used to kill his sister. This left the jury in a tough spot. They couldn't clearly be convinced by the sleepwalking defense, but they also weren't sold on the idea that Elliott was a cold-blooded killer. If they had believed this was a calculated murder, then they could have recommended a much harsher sentence. Instead, they asked the judge for leniency, which is exactly what he gave. Not everyone agrees with the jury's verdict. Neurological doctor Gerald Simmons, who testified for the defense, flat out said, "I think the jury got it wrong. It's totally possible to kill while sleepwalking. If it wasn't possible, I wouldn't have taken this position. He pointed out that while rare, similar cases have happened before. For example, back in 2010, a North Carolina man was found not guilty after claiming he was sleepwalking when he smothered his 4-year-old son and attacked 2 other children. In that case, experts testified that extreme stress and sleep deprivation could trigger violent sleepwalking episodes. But in Elliott's case, the jury just wasn't convinced enough to let him walk free. So was Benjamin Elliott a tragic victim of a sleep disorder, or did the jury just spare a young man from spending his entire life in prison? Because they weren't totally sure of his intentions. One thing's certain, Meghan Elliott didn't get a second chance. And her twin brother, the person who should have been her lifelong protector, is now behind bars for the next 15 years with plenty of time to reflect on whether he was awake or not when he took her life. I don't know. It's a hard one.
That's a toughie, isn't it? Because I can actually see both sides of it.
Yeah.
I see where the family's coming from, and if he has been a sleepwalker in the past.
Yeah.
But then the fact that he was using a phone 20 minutes before he killed her.
That to me is not a negative. That to me is actually a positive, because sleepwalking is a very interesting state that you get into, either coming out of sleep or going into deeper sleep, where you're just, I mean, it's also, it's close to the state of, what is it called? Where people have their eyes, is it vivid dream? Not vivid dreaming. What is it? It's in the Ghost show quite a bit.
Like sleep paralysis?
Sleep paralysis, yes. Okay. It's basically sleep paralysis without the paralysis is what it is. And you can be sleepwalking with your eyes open, and you can then be seeing whatever your brain is wanting you to see. It's like if you've ever put on VR goggles and have seen augmented reality, or used your phone and seen augmented reality where it's showing you something that's not there. Like, I guess Pokemon Go is the most common example I think one would know. That's how your brain works in that sort of a situation. And if you're thinking you're dreaming, or not knowing you're dreaming, or just in a very, we do things in dreams that I don't think we would do in real life oftentimes. And if somehow you're in this mindset that this is a bad person, may not even realizing it's a sister. It's not like it's some sort of pent-up thing where I hate her deeply and in my dreams I kill her. That doesn't have to be the equation here at all. In his dream, she could have been anything that he had to protect himself from.
And the thing is that it could also go the total other way, where we hear of these kids who just, or people, not just kids, but a lot of times they're younger, who just wanted to kill somebody to see what it felt like.
Yeah.
Could it have been that? And then he's like, I sleepwalk. This will be an easy defense.
I don't know.
I'm torn on this story because I'm not convinced personally that he was sleepwalking. But then he could have been.
Look,
the family is convinced he was sleepwalking.
Just because he has the knife by him doesn't show premeditation. Maybe he collects knives. Maybe a lot of guys do. It's not my cup of tea, but it's a thing a lot of guys do, and they put them in their nightstand. Sometimes they sleep in the bed with them. I mean, people do different things. To me, the fact that he is he's like 21, or how old was he? I think
he was 17.
17. Okay, so getting into young adulthood and being into that sort of thing and having that in the house, that doesn't scream to me he's going to go murder his sister. It doesn't. It just seems like he probably went to Cabela's and bought a knife.
But I couldn't imagine being the jury, because I wouldn't know which way to go. And so maybe this was like a compromise. Like, he really did kill her.
Yeah, I think it was a compromise, because at the end of the day, yes, he really did kill her. You're asking a jury to understand psychological motives behind things, and they're not great at that. But I think they said to themselves, look, maybe I don't fully buy this, but I probably don't fully understand it either. So... And I'm going to guess the way the kid presented and the way the family presented really showed just kind of an earnest, yeah, I did this, but I did not. this is not at all anything I would want to do. And the fact that the family is sitting there and testifying too, yes, I get you'd not want to believe your kid is capable of this and all of that, but maybe he's not. I mean, he was in a dream, obviously, but he, in real life, is he capable? No, probably not. He probably is either going to, spend those next 15 years just, in hell and the rest of his life really knowing that he killed his sister, assuming that this was not on purpose and that he did love her. And I can't imagine that grief and guilt. I mean, take public shame out of the equation. You killed, your twin that, you supposedly have no issues with whatsoever. That's a lot.
I'm surprised we don't hear more of this from people taking Ambien.
Well,
And not
murder, yeah, I
remembering what
know.
they do. Because I've talked, I knew a guy who he could tell by his Fitbit he had walked 2.5 miles one night.
Yeah.
Didn't know any of it. And I worked with him, and he would be like, oh, he'd come in with some big package, and he'd open it in front of me. Let's see what I ordered on Ambien. He didn't remember any of this stuff, and he was always getting packages at work and didn't remember it. And I'm like, okay, so if you could be walking for 2.5 miles, imagine what else you could do when you're on Ambien that you would never know.
Well, yeah, no, you're exactly right. I want to say there has been cases, or maybe I'm not.
I bet there has been.
There are no known, this is according to ChatGPT at this moment. There's been cases of Ambien-related violence, sleep driving, unexpected outbursts, reckless, strange behavior, but as of now, there's been nothing tried murder-wise.
Shit, we just gave everybody another idea. It was the
Well, okay, here I'm saying these are cases that have not been tried. I do not know if there has been other cases that maybe have been settled out of court. If there was a civil suit against Ambien for anything. But according to this, there hasn't been any criminal cases looking at that yet, which I'm kind of surprised by too, because, I've heard a lot of stories of people. I mean, it's a common thing where people, do some weird shit sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I would not take it. That's because of that. I'm like, nope.
But in this case, I feel so bad for the family because, one daughter's now gone and he's going to prison, and there's no win here for anybody. It's really, really horrific.
No, I mean, a family's been torn apart, and it might all just be because of, an error of the mind that nobody in their right mind in this family would have ever done. But brains
they know
sometimes.
each other. I don't know this family. They know him. They know what he,
I'd be leaning a lot heavier on the family's testimony in this, and the jury, I think they did to a certain extent, but realized there still has to be a punishment for this crime.
It is murder.
If true crime is your obsession, we've got you covered. Press subscribe now to the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today for non-stop coverage, expert insights, and in-depth analysis.